Hello and welcome to episode 3, Soul Food and Fuel for Your Life. I'm your host, Kenton David Bell, and I am a transformational spiritual healer, life coach, facilitator of dreams to help you create the best life ever. So we're going to talk a little bit about what is going on the planet at this time. This being my third episode, we're going to get into some of the fundamentals and building blocks. And then in future episodes, we'll expand into some of those and go into greater detail. So many of you know that we are in a time of great change. We are in a time where our solar system is arcing back towards the center of the galaxy. Now, as this happens, we begin to come up in frequency and vibration, which affects the magnetic field of the Earth, of the planet, as well as our consciousness. Our consciousness is defined in human form by the magnetics and electronics going on not only in us, but in the planet and the frequencies that we're at any given moment. As those frequencies change, the systems that we have in place also begin to dissolve. So we're needing to create new systems. We're seeing it in every aspect of our world. We're seeing it in politics. We're seeing it in finances, economy. We're seeing it in the way people are thinking. So we're coming out of the pandemic. Why do so many people not want to go back to their jobs, to their menial labor jobs? People are starting to realize that there's more to life than what we have been doing for the past hundreds of years, actually probably about 13,000 years. It's an approximate 26,000 year cycle that our solar system makes towards the center of the galaxy and then back away. So for approximately the next 13,000 years, we will be headed towards the center of the galaxy again. It is said that in the time of Atlantis, that we were more awake, and the reason why is because we were moving towards the center of the galaxy. They say that at the fall of Atlantis was when we began to arc away from the center of the galaxy. And we literally fell in consciousness. We fell asleep. We forget who we are. Now, another way to look at that, if you look at the bigger macro, is we're actually just in the contraction period for 13,000 years after an expansion period for 13,000 years prior to that. So everything goes from expansion, stasis, contraction, stasis, expansion, stasis, contraction, stasis, and so on. Even our own human auric energy fields do this. Now, expansion always feels great. We all love it when we get expansive. We feel like we're in communion with God. We have these huge ahas, epiphanies, great uplift feelings. Even some people might even appear manic in those moments when they're going through an expansion. Then we hit stasis, which is the pause between breath, is a good way to think of it. Stasis is the stillness, the still point. Then we go into contraction. And it is this contraction that is important because it's in the contraction that we begin to integrate what we've gone through in the expansion. So in certain ways, you could say that for the last 13,000 years, humanity has been in an integrating process of what was expanded on the last 13,000 years. So now again, we're headed into 13,000 year cycle of expansion. It looks like things are falling apart, and in certain ways they are. Anything that was based in a lower frequency, lower consciousness is beginning to be reviewed for change. And we don't even really have a choice about this, you see. This is happening. It's not a choice within humans. It's not a collective choice. It is a collective movement, however. Now, one of the things that's going on is we are moving from, in this change I'm talking about, we're moving from a third dimensional reality kind of into and through a fourth dimensional into a fifth dimensional reality is where many people are starting to already have that experience. And each one of these layers, each one of these dimensional layers that we ascend through has its own set of physics and rules. So it's important to understand some of these rules in order to move successfully with as much grace and ease as possible in this time of great upheaval. Now, I'm going to give you a bit of a kind of a very basic overview of that. So in the third dimension, we are very linear in linear time. And, it's like one segment of time preceded by the next, by the next, by the next, by the next. And we have a tendency to track things in that order. Well, as we move from the third into the fourth dimension, that begins to change ever so slightly. And as we move into the fifth dimension, we move into a different relationship with time. And I'm going to talk about time either in this podcast, we'll see how long this goes, or in a following podcast. We're going to talk a lot about the fundamentals of time and space and how to begin to consciously work with these energies as we are beginning to create the new world. So, in the third dimensional world, where most people who are listening to this were probably born into that, raised in that, and had a good amount of experience in this dimensional energy, things are very, as I said, very linear, and you look to your environment, meaning reality in the world, for tools to move through that reality, such as, literally hand tools going back to the evolution of humanity when we first were beginning to work with hand tools. That came as a result of our consciousness in the third dimensional reality. Okay? Another, let's say, keynote earmark of the third dimension is when an individual reaches for power, they're actually reaching for force. The individual doesn't understand the true meaning of power for the most part when you're in the third dimension. When we're talking about power, we're talking about the ability to create your reality through your intention, attention, thoughts, and feelings. Okay? So when you're born in the third dimension, also, if you have an idea about God or source, whatever you want to call it, the power that's greater that created us, always in the third dimension, the experience is as if it's something outside of you. Okay? The very basic framework of psychology is built in the third dimension. And we talk about these are my feelings, those are your feelings, so on and so forth. When you start to move through the fourth and the fifth dimension, these rules change and your experience changes. So as you begin to move through them, you cannot reach for the same old tools and skill set. You have to actually rely on kind of an intuitive guidance system within you that is in each and every person, but dormant in most. So we're wanting to help wake up that intuitive system that's already in the most incredible intelligent being there is in the universe, and that is the human being. That is you who's listening to this. So there's nothing more powerful than you, the human being. And what we are coaching you back into, what we're trying to talk you back into, what we're trying to remind you back into is that that's who you are. Because that's the truth, really. So in third dimension, when you reach for power, you reach for force. You see something coming at you, you react like that. That's typical in the third dimension. If you believe in God, source, you see that as a power that is actually outside of you. When you go through the fourth dimension, you start to understand that there's something more than just you and you against the world, you see. It's you and the collective now. And the fourth dimension is what we call a collective experience. So it's where we put the needs of the many before the needs of the one. When we're in the third and fifth dimension, these are what we call individuated states, where you put the individual needs before the needs of others, really. Now, this is important to make a clear distinction here. So as you traverse through these dimensional energies, you're never out of any of them, really. So you're always in the third, fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh dimension. We exist in all those dimensions, pretty much all of us simultaneously. The key is where our lens is, where our focus is at any given moment. And for the sake of this talk right now, even though we are multidimensional beings, we're going to be talking about the single lens apparatus, meaning your lens is either in the third, the fourth, or the fifth. Now, some people, including myself, are starting to have, I would say, graduating into a multidimensionality perspective, and that is seeing things through multi-dimensions simultaneously. But in order for that to happen in a way that is balanced and literally doesn't make you crazy or psychotic, it takes a fair amount of clearing and learning certain rules about each of the dimensions. All right? So we're going to get into that too. But I'm just kind of laying out the groundwork here for everybody so you can see where I'm coming from and how this resonates for you. And this really is something for everybody. This isn't just like a new modality. I've been working at this for a while, kicking the tires, stretching it this way and that way. And we're all kind of going to learn this together as we all are ascending together at the same time. In this work that I do with others and the way I live my life is we always come back to the idea that you are the creator of your reality. And we could take it a step further. You are often creating your reality from an egoic place of your own mind, which is usually without that idea and concept of what we call God, which is just pure love. And there's an intelligence in that design that if we learn to tap into, we can begin to create a world that also has love in it for ourselves. For instance, I don't know about all those of you out there listening, but I'm sure this will speak to many of you, if not all of you, is, the idea of the American dream. Okay. You get married, you go to school, get married, have some kids, get a good job and save your money and work until retirement, and you'll be happy and you have a nice retirement, then you die and blah, blah, blah. That's it. Well, many are finding that is not satisfying at all anymore. As a matter of fact, some years ago when I was doing this transformational work in a corporate culture and making a ton of money, and I could really go anywhere, do anything I wanted, which was kind of my bar at the time for success, was to be able to get on a plane, first class, go anywhere in the world if I want to stay at a 5-star resort without even thinking twice about it. And I did a lot of that. I loved that. But it also left me feeling kind of empty inside. There wasn't something greatly fulfilling about that. And, some people will say, oh, well, you didn't have kids or you weren't married, blah, 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 this or that. And I have been married and divorced twice and have had many relationships, have not had children. But the point I'm making is it's none of those things. Those are all wonderful things, by the way. But what it really is that relationship to God within us. That's what we're all really looking for. No matter how desperate we think we are for love out in the world, it's really about love for ourselves and for God, our relationship with the divine and seeing that within us. When we begin to create from that place of the divine, with the divine in us, as if it's the software we're running versus the egoic personality software, when we're doing that, then we begin to have much more satisfaction with a lot less need for the material things to try to fill us up. Our country in particular is very focused on material possessions to make us happy, and that's pressed in every way, shape, and form in our culture. I think there's nothing wrong with material success and wealth. As a matter of fact, I welcome it. I think it's great, but that's not the end game. That's not what it's really about. That's kind of like the icing on the cake. That's the, kind of the sheen or the shine and the gloss we put on things. But it's not the meat and the potatoes of life. It's not the core stuff that real dreams are made out of. And I use that word dreams intentionally because really it is all a dream. Life is but a dream. So when you move from the third dimension to the fourth dimensional experience and energies, this is also into the astral as well, where like attracts like and so on. And it's also easy to get divided there too. So one of the healing keys or the healing keys for the astral and fourth dimensional energy is unconditional love for all others. All unconditional love across the board for all sentient beings, and complete acceptance of what is. Now, that doesn't mean you have to agree with it. What it means is not having a judgment about it, not judging anything. When we're in the fourth dimension, judgment gets us caught, kind of like quicksand. When you find yourself judging even the smallest little judgments. I find, for instance, in my own experience, it could be like, that cashier's head at the store or hair, I don't really like the way she's wearing it. Just something seemingly kind of innocent little thought like that going through my mind. But then it can easily, kind of snowball into bigger judgments. So I really watch all of that and, there's nothing wrong with her hair. Of course, it's only my interpretation of it. That is the problem. Take that for a moment and lay that transparency, what I'm saying, on our current political divide in our country. And if you look at that, and it doesn't matter what side you're on, by the way, but your own judgment and the energy that goes into that actually keeps you locked into the place that, trust me, you don't want to be locked into. Here's a good example. Some years ago, I was living at the time in the town of Sonoma, California. And some of you who know me know this story. I'll share this story with clients often because it's such a great modeling of what we're talking about here. And I'm driving, small little town, small roads. I'm behind a Toyota Prius, and she, whoever's driving very, very slow, and I can't get around. And I'm just in one of those moods where I'm frustrated. I want to get around or get ahead or just want this effing Prius out of my way. That's how I was feeling that day, okay? And here I am, kind of so charged around it, so much energy around it. And anyhow, I can't remember exactly what happened at that moment, but, let's just say the Prius finally turned, or I got to the store I was going, wherever I was going, and that was the end of it that moment. Now, the next day, guess what happened? I'm out driving, and another Prius, not the same one, a different one, is in front of me driving excruciatingly slow, down to a crawl. And I'm just sitting there ready to go. I'm, wound up for my day. And boom, I'm right behind a Prius again. Well, cut ahead quite a bit. A couple of years go by, and this is literally happening almost every single day. I know. And you would think I would figure this out long before a couple of years. But this was what was going on with me at the time. I'm just being very honest. And for a long time, I knew that it was me creating this. At first, I didn't want to take ownership, even though I did believe, I was creating most of my reality. I didn't believe I was creating this part of it. Why would I be creating that? Well, what it was is my idea and focus that I had that one day locked in that experience. And I literally was having that experience almost every single day. And I'm not exaggerating, at least 5 times a week for about 2 years, or maybe a little bit more even. But after the first year, I knew I was doing it. However, I didn't want to let go of my anger. I wanted to hang on to that. I was not ready to let go of my anger. So every time I got behind a Prius that was going very slow, I got pissed off. I got frustrated. I got angry. I got, bent out of joint, all of that. Finally, one day I decided to let it go. I said, that's enough of this, Kenton. I don't have to stay married to that anger any longer. I can let it go. I don't have to wear it like a badge of honor or, this is like some heroic thing being angry at the frickin' car going slow in front of you, right? That day I made up my mind, it stopped. I don't think I've had one Prius in front of me going slow, messing up my day since then, and that was many, many years now. I'm going to give you another little, it's another car one. This is more recent and within the last couple years. And at the time, I was living in a condo in Scottsdale on the edge of the desert there. And we had this neighbor who was kind of not a friendly person, let's say. And there was a few problems we had with them. I'm not going to go into it really, and because that's not part of the story. But one day I'm going downstairs to the parking lot to my car, and I see his Mercedes there next to my car. And I thought to myself, oh, Mercedes, a-hole. Jerk Mercedes. That's what's in my mind. And I was so aware of that in that moment. I get in my car to go to my mailbox, which is a couple miles away, maybe a 10, 12-minute drive each way, about 15, 20 round trip. And within 15 minutes, 3 different Mercedes are right in front of me, stopping in the middle of the road. Just absolutely stopping in the middle of the road for no reason. I can't figure this out. So that's between my house and my mailbox. 3 different Mercedes encounters in 10 minutes. So I get my mail, get back in my car, start heading back. Guess what? It happens again. This time, all of a sudden, I realize what is going on. I didn't get it the first 3. You would think I would. But that's how we all are. We don't get it. Trust me, we're not getting it. We're not seeing it. So I saw what was happening. Mercedes stopped right in front of me. I just started laughing, released it. It stopped. Went home. That was the end of that. But that was another reminder about how things move or do not move in our reality. I've had a lot of experience in traffic with compassion. When and if you're able to run compassion through you, you'll literally part the sea of traffic, and I mean literally, I'm not talking figuratively. Within moments of you practicing running true compassion, not the idea of it, but actual energy going through you, through your heart, out into the world, will begin to break up all traffic and literally removes all obstacles, I find. Compassion, humility, forgiveness, love, these are all tools, actually, that when we are expressing these tools, things begin to move in new ways. Reality begins to open up and we begin to move unencumbered through not only reality, but also through different dimensional portals as well. So if you really want to be a multidimensional being, these are some of the keys to unlocking that ability to move effortlessly, seamlessly, with grace and ease through these different energies, okay? So the healing key for the 4th dimension is unconditional love for all others and complete acceptance of what is. Now, what that means is no judgment. It does not mean a lack of discernment. And that was something I really have, and still, I would say still am learning, is discernment. So it's, what's right for me, it's this, but not that. And just because that's not right for me doesn't mean that it's absolutely wrong or wrong for somebody else or right for somebody else or whatever. So it just means that it's just not right for me. And I always go by the idea that if I'm trying to figure out if it's right for me or not, does it have love in it? Does it feel like it's uplifting? Or does it feel like it's energy draining? Does it feel like it's energy giving or energy draining? And we must begin to use a new set of criteria for life, because just the normal mental mindset that many people use will not allow you to traverse through these dimensional gateways. You'll have to let go of a rigid mind that thinks it knows stuff. For instance, do you think your thoughts, or do your thoughts think you? Do you think your thoughts? Do you cultivate your thoughts? Do you choose your thoughts? Or are your thoughts choosing you? Most cases, people's thoughts are choosing them. If they have a thought or a belief, they tend to believe it's true, whether it's true or not. But they also have tons of evidence for it. The more that we are rigid around our mindset, our thinking, the more that we gather evidence for these things we believe to be true, the more we're actually just anchoring ourselves to a platform, a place, an environment, a situation, a relationship that may or may not be in our best interest. But we get hooked into the ideas that this is right, this is wrong. I think this way, I'm smart, my thinking is right, their thinking is wrong. I'm telling you, most of that, almost all of it, is a lot of BS. Most of it's BS. So what we want to do is begin to start thinking with a higher mind. What does that mean? Well, it means that we begin to let go through intention and putting our attention on that higher mind. We call it our higher self, higher mind. I sometimes will refer to it as soul's wisdom, higher guidance, source connection. These are all terms I use at times to describe what I'm trying to describe to you, what I'm trying to share. But it is an intention more than anything. When you sit down to meditate, ask to tune in to your higher self. Ask with earnest desire and passion to call that forth. You can't just ask for it without a desire, without a passion there, without the emotion component. As a matter of fact, that's one of the biggest problems in our world right now, is the lack of emotion or energy attached to thoughts and words often. And usually if they aren't not the right energies attached to our thoughts or words. But when we begin to align a sense of passion and desire, a yearning, a wanting in a sense, and wanting from a bigger place, not just a wanting of, I want another steak dinner, or I want another Ferrari, or I want another girlfriend, or I want another, suit of clothes or dress or whatever, a bigger house. Not that kind of wanting, but more about a deeper intrinsic, I want to know myself. I want to experience myself. I want to experience myself with God. I want God to experience itself in me, with me. It's kind of that kind of knowing and wanting that we're talking about, not just a purely intellectual mind trap. Okay? There's a big difference there. And if you don't know the difference, I highly recommend that you begin to ask internally for you to understand the difference. Now, some of the hallmarks of a fifth dimensional experience is you begin to have this feeling or experience and knowing that you have, at least to some degree, authorship over your reality. You start to notice that, oh, wow, I had a thought. I thought of this person, they called me. I had a idea that this was going to happen. Boom, it happens. That is more of a fifth dimensional experience. Now, when we begin to reach for power in the fifth dimension, we're actually starting to reach for real power. You see, we are reaching for that connection we have with the divine, and we're starting to refine ourselves to the point where we're beginning to cultivate our thoughts a little bit more consciously. We're beginning to be able to ride those periods of manifestation. We're watching synchronicities and manifestations happen over and over again for us. When we reach for power, we're reaching for power. We find that force doesn't work in the fifth dimension, really. It has no place. It doesn't vibrate. As a matter of fact, if we keep reaching for force too much, we will find ourselves back operating in a third dimensional reality, most likely. So our thinking and the tools that go along with the thinking is also what determines the vibrational set point that we might be at any given time. Now, once again, we never leave the old places, really. I mean, they're still in us. We're going forward through these dimensional energies, simultaneously, like a comet in a sense. We still have a tail in those other ones. So we transcend and include. We do not just go to the next one and exclude it. We transcend and include. So it's important to understand that as you're moving through these, it's actually mastery of self-mastery, that enables you to be able to stay in the higher frequencies in the fifth dimension. And just like, let's say that you were a high-powered CEO. Let's say you're somebody who built your company, and now you're a high-powered CEO. It's become very successful. Well, when you first started out, you toil and labor and felt like moving through molasses probably sometimes. And as you get going, though, things kind of take on a life of their own. You get things in place. You're starting to get some good business going. You're getting some of that synergy going within you and your team and your company and all that. Then you have the company kind of all coming together, all the people. Now, that's a collective. That's a fourth dimensional aspect. And then when you have all that going, your company keeps growing and expanding. You have hundreds of employees now. You have this great products, and products are sold all over the world. And you are the CEO, and you're kind of up there, observing from that place, in a sense, all the different pieces moving. And think about how a high-powered CEO like that would run a company. You don't run around using force. You're using power. You're holding power, in a sense. You're making very powerful decisions that affect hundreds of people's livelihoods, including your own. It affects your stock price, whatever it might be. So it's that kind of thinking, you see. It actually takes a lot less energy to kind of operate at that level than it does in the third dimensional level, where you get a lot less done. So in many ways, it takes less energy playing a bigger game, you see. I like to use the term often, light touch. When we're in a higher frequency operating from that place, it takes a light touch. It's not a real arduous thinking process, or the criteria we use is not heavy-handed. It's light touch. It's clear. You're able to see kind of what the whole picture looks like, as opposed to just little pieces. So when we learn to live our lives from this perspective, from this vantage point, things take on a very different feeling and meaning. You start to, I used to call it pre-paving, where you can actually look out over your day and your whole schedule. Like I would look over my roster of clients that day, and I would kind of just gently, mentally, psychically, spiritually go through each session before I actually showed up. And I could feel if there was going to be a little hiccup here or there. And I would kind of almost, add a little extra energy or time and space psychically to that space. And then I would do the session, go through the day of sessions, and everything always went so much more smoothly, I found. And I'd always have more energy afterwards too. I call that pre-paving, kind of pre-pave your way for the day. You just kind of look out and say, this is going to go great. And if you feel a little hiccup, kind of smooth it out first. Go into your heart, ask Spirit, go into prayer, and ask that it be made right before you even head on into your day. It's amazing what happens then. So that's kind of I want to say brief, but we're like 35 minutes into the podcast already. But that kind of gives you an idea of what we're talking about through the third, fourth, fifth dimension. This is how the earth and humanity is moving up through the frequencies. We're never just in one. We're always in all of them simultaneously. However, our lens is usually in one of those dimensional energies at a time. And therefore, often if you are experiencing, for instance, like what we might call roadblocks or in your day-to-day life or in your work, business, relationships, money, chances are you can find it by going through, is this am I working in the third dimension or am I in the fourth dimension? If I'm in the fourth dimension, am I resisting? Do I have a judgment that's kind of keeping something from flowing to me? If I'm in the fifth dimension, am I using force? Am I being too heavy-handed? Whereas if it's a light touch, not arduous, no struggling, no efforting, that's what we're talking about in the fifth dimension. It's just you're in alignment. You create through your thoughts. You create through the power of your connection to your source, you see. So that kind of breaks it down just in a very basic, broad strokes sort of way. So I'm going to end this chapter and we're going to go into the second chapter of the podcast. I'm Kenton David Bell, and thank you for joining me. We'll be right back. So in this next segment, we're going to talk about two of the most fundamental aspects of our reality, time and space. And I'm not going to talk about it necessarily in a scientific way. I'm going to talk about it in a metaphysical way and perspective, with the emphasis on how to engage these two things, what we call time and space, the fundamentals of our space-time envelope that allows us to have this experience of what we call reality. So time, I've had so many experiences. I could literally probably talk for 10 hours straight. That's a time joke about my experiences with time. Time is very malleable, especially as we move out of the third dimension through the fourth into the fifth dimension. Time takes on a very different meaning. And we now are more in the now. And it's only in the now that we are truly present, and in the presence where we're truly connected to our power. So time is something that most people think is something outside of them. Most people have the experience of time being something that they're always chasing after, or there's not enough of it, or it's not their ally, it's an enemy. Well, that is the egoic mind defining time. Time actually flows through you. It flows through each of us. And as you begin to examine your relationship to time, you'll begin to understand what I'm talking about. So time is not something outside of us. Time flows through us. When we are battling with time, that is always the egoic mind, period. Now, I've had experiences with time that would just, I can't prove it, but would, blow your mind if you were having that experience. I know more and more people are having experiences like that. Part of the reason, again, going back to the shift of ages, we're coming up in vibration and frequency. And as we do that, time itself changes, the nature of time and our relationship to it. Now, time has always kind of stayed the same, but it's our relationship to it that affects the flow or impedes the flow. During the early days of my awakening, it was in the early 2000s, I was living in Bodega Bay, north of San Francisco, lovely area. And now and then I would have to drive into the city, San Francisco, to meet somebody, or go have food or some good ethnic food, or go to the airport, pick somebody up, or go on a trip myself. So I started noticing that no matter when I left from Bodega Bay to go to the city or the airport, and I had, a particular arrival time, I would get there exactly at the right time. I would usually drive about the same speed with or without traffic. Sometimes I'd leave 15, 20 minutes early. Other times I would leave 15, 20 minutes, even one time 30 minutes late, where it seemed like it was absolutely impossible to get there on time. And yet I did. I started noticing that if I intended to get to a particular place, a particular destination, not just between Bodega Bay and San Francisco, but actually on even longer trips, I could intend down to the moment that I would arrive. I mean, down to the minute. And this was true on, car trips that were 3, 4, 5, 6 hours long. As a matter of fact, I was dating somebody for a while there, and we would play that game of guessing what time we get there. And she was very psychic as well. So it would come within a minute or two almost always, even if there was huge amounts of traffic or absolutely no traffic. It was it was a lot of fun, actually. So really, it's our relationship to time. Ask yourself right now, as you're listening to this, what is the nature of your relationship to time? Does time sound like something that is a friend, an ally, or is it something that you're always racing against? Is it something you always feel as though there's not enough of? Well, the egoic mind always thinks time is too short, or there's not enough of it, that it's outside of you, something that you're racing the clock, trying to beat the clock, or what have you. The truth is time flows through you. And if you can make time your ally, then your relationship with time will begin to change, and you'll start to notice that you have ample time for everything. I think of the Rolling Stones song, "Time is on My Side." And we all know that, I'm sure. And, oh, yes, it is. Time is on my side. Oh, yes, it is. So we all know that. Excuse my off voice there, but you get the point. Time is on your side if you want it to be. I remember I worked with a travel writer. She wrote for very well-known travel books. This is many years ago. We were working together, and we just did a few sessions. And she was always late on her deadlines. It was a big problem for her. So we worked on that, and I don't remember right now what we did, but pretty much just the idea of bringing her into alignment with the element of time, with the fundamentals of time. And I haven't spoken with her for years now. We kind of lost touch. But when she did report back to me, she said, which was sometime afterwards, she said she was never late for a deadline again. So if you're struggling with time, there's a lot that can be done with that. And it's just so simple, really. The egoic mind wants to make it confusing and almost impossible. But it is a very simple thing, a very simple idea to come into the alignment with time itself. Now, I'm going to briefly talk about space as well. Space is another component. Time and space make up, those are components of our reality. And once again, the egoic mind creates space in a very constrictive way often. I can't tell you how many times I've helped individuals, or even I'm thinking groups, organizations, families, in particular families, healing certain things just by giving everybody a little more space. What do I mean by that? I mean, literally picture those around you, your family, your loved ones, with a lot of space around them, all the space they need, and then double that. See them in their world, their reality as being very spacious. See yourself in your world being very spacious. If you're, let's say, a executive of sorts, and you're in meetings often throughout the day, and you feel that that pressure of, I got, meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting all day, break for lunch, boom, 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 meetings all the way till I'm gone. So when you're looking at that, you can begin to expand your space. Start to see each hour as being a very spacious hour for you, where there's much space and time, plenty of space and time for everything to get done that needs to get done in that hour, and with you feeling revitalized and refreshed at the end of the hour. When we start to feel the pressure of the day, the egoic mind will grab it and start to constrict time and space. And so often, so many problems or issues can be handled just by getting the egoic mind's relationship out of the relationship with time and space and into the higher mind, which will tell you there's always enough time. There's always enough time and space for everything. We're going to go into this more. Probably I'll offer some brief courses on time and space because it's so fundamental. It's a great thing for anybody to begin to practice and just spend a little time with. We're going to end this segment here, and we'll have a little meditation at the end here. And I appreciate you taking your time, your space, for taking in this information. Without you, I do not exist, really. So I am Kenton David Bell. Thank you again, and we'll be right back with the meditation segment. Thank you very much. And this is Kenton David Bell. We are back with our meditation section. We have rain sounds in the background because here in Sedona, it is a rainy monsoon day. It's wonderful, cozy, relaxing. Find a comfortable place to be quiet in, sitting down or laying down. And just take a moment and pay attention to the breath. Here I am taking a breath in. Here I am letting a breath out. Here I am taking a breath in. Here I am letting a breath out. And just keep your focus gently on the breath. If you find yourself wandering off, just gently bring yourself back to the breath. Here I am breathing in. Here I am breathing out. And in this meditation, we are going to connect with our soul's essence, our soul's wisdom. And we're going to allow the inner self to experience that soul's wisdom, the soul's essence, however it desires to experience it. So there's no right or wrong to this. We hold the intention that we begin to align with the wisdom of the soul, the wisdom of our non-physical aspect of self, the part of us that was never born and will never die, the part of us that just is, period. The I am in all of us, you, me, and everyone. And we ask that we begin to connect and that we begin to create a new understanding today here, a deeper knowing of that connection to that non-physical aspect of self. We ask that we let go of the egoic mind. We move into the heart. With the eyes closed, we intend ourselves to just gently with ease and grace, drop into the heart space, right here and now. We allow ourselves to begin to experience that non-physical aspect of self, which is so much greater than the egoic mind can even conceive of, that we must let the egoic mind go in order to drop into that experience of the truth of who you are, the truth of who you've always been, and the truth of who you always shall be. We allow ourselves to begin to feel and experience that magnificence that we are, that light and vibration, that greatness and grandness of self. We allow ourselves to be enveloped into the energy of the soul, the essence of who you really are. We let the day go. We let the everyday world that we know go. We allow ourselves to step beyond that which is what we call reality and into the light and pure love from which we came, from which we are, from which we shall return. And it is this connection, this knowing, this relationship of self to self, from human self to true self, that we celebrate, we sit in reunion with right here and now. We listen for that affirmation. We feel that affirmation in our hearts, in the cells of our bodies, in the thoughts of our brains, in the feelings of our emotions, in the joy of our heart. We feel it embrace us. We feel the grace of God come through us. We allow the grace to envelop us in wisdom, in the ability to let go of that which is not serving. We allow the grace of God, the grace of soul, the grace of the Almighty, of Source, to imbue us with that ability to transition from the egoic into the higher mind, the mind of God, the soul of God, of you, the emotions, the feelings and knowingness of God and soul in you. We desire with passion, clarity, and deliberate intent that we receive now that which we need to know. And we allow ourselves to receive that which we ask for. Maybe it is some sort of a relief with, another individual, maybe a hiccup in a relationship. Asking your source self, your soul and soul's creator, to gently relieve you of that now. Perhaps it's some depression you're dealing with. The soul in its perfection knows no depression. Depression is a product of the egoic mind. We allow this to go. We allow ourselves to be restored to our incredible divine template that knows no depression. We allow the illusion to release. Perhaps you're feeling alone and lonely. Perhaps you're missing the company of another. Perhaps you're feeling, what's the use in this time on the planet? Well, we'll tell you what the use is. The use is your soul and its God knowingness that's within you. That's what is the use. The love you seek is your relationship to you, your relationship to God, to the divine. The love you seek is the love for you, the love for yourself, self-love. Just tell yourself, I love me. Yes, I do. And I can feel that flicker of that flame in my heart. It might feel dim at this moment, but if I cultivate it, if I spend some time with it, it shall grow brighter, and my love of self will grow greater, and I shall grow stronger. And I know that that is the best remedy for loneliness. If I'm feeling useless, that is because that's a creation of the egoic mind. It's an illusion. Your presence here is more than enough. You do not have to do or be a particular way to be worthy. You are God's grace incarnate, God's love. What is more worthy than that? It's only the idea that you're not, the egoic idea, the illusion that you're not. You are an incredible being of vibration, light, love, compassion. You are strong beyond what you know. And truly the only thing to fear is fear itself. For fear is an illusion. There is only love. There is only God. Everything else is false, period. Repeat with me in your own mind or out loud if you like. I intend to work within the mind of God, within the love of God. I intend to work with the wisdom of my soul to greatly, gracefully, powerfully, and deliberately create my world with love of God. I release those who've trespassed against me. I forgive them of any perceived sins. For truly, if I see a sin in another, that is the only sin in me, for I am sinless in truth. I am sinless in my own self-mastery, and always shall be. My heart is pure and clean. I am a child of God. I'm a human being traversing this universe with love, joy, curiosity, and an incredible appetite for creation. And it's okay to want what you want. It's okay to manifest what you want. God wants you to have what you want. What is truly good for you is truly good for everyone, for the planet. What is truly good for you is truly good. Allow your heart to swell with the truth of who you are. Allow your head to release any lies or doubts or fears. Allow your mind to become one with the mind of God. Allow your thoughts to become one with the thoughts of God. Take a moment and ask the wisdom of your soul, what is the one thing you need to hear most right now? What is that one message from your soul's wisdom that you need to hear to help you right here today moving forward in your life experience? What is that one thing that will help you with whatever's going on with you in particular right now? And take that in. Let that be part of your wholeness. Let it help reveal that there is no fear, truly. There are no lies. There's only truth. And the truth is love. The truth is God. The truth is you. The divine template that you are. I love you all so much. And I wish you all the best on your journey. I am Kenton David Bell. Thank you for joining me in my podcast and my meditation. Have a wonderful day, and we'll see you soon. So that brings us to the end of our podcast today. I am Kenton David Bell. This has been Soul Food and Fuel for Your Life. If you're interested in contacting me for any work, session work, or organizational work, please feel free to call me at 928-274-2026. Or you may email me at my email address, which is kentondavidbell@gmail.com. We'll see you soon. Thank you again. Have a wonderful day.